Hey, feature weapon enthusiasts, I'm Nick Young, the CEO of Desert Tech. And a few weeks back, then we took our SRS-M2 and we shot it at extreme distances to demonstrate what extreme distance accuracy looks like beyond 1,000 yards. And this rifle performed admirably. However, there are a few people in the comments that questioned the results that we got. One person asked if it was a good result. Another person said it was not a good result. And a third person said that they can shoot 2 to 4 inch groups at 1,100 yards all day with their rifle, and that our result was not good. So the first thing I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to show you what the best shooters in the world are able to achieve at 1,000 yards. And then I'm going to show you what people are achieving with field rifles off bipods. And then we'll analyze the performance that we showed a couple weeks ago with our SRS. If you enjoy extreme distance shooting like I do, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel because we're going to be putting out a lot more in the future. So the best shooters in the world are Benchrest shooters. They spend an insane amount of preparation on their ammunition and their hand loads, and they have very, very precise Benchrest rifles, very stable platforms, and you can see that the world record group is like 2.3 inches for 10 shots. The record before that was like 3.6 inches. There's a really awesome Benchrest shooter named Eric Cortina, and I will link his channel in the description. But if you really want to learn how to push the envelope and really get these kinds of extreme accuracy groups, he has a ton of knowledge on his channel that will get you closer to that level. So in Benchrest shooting, they have a light gun class that's 17-pound limit of the rifle, and they shoot 5-shot groups. And there's an example on Shooting USA of some woman who had her personal best group of 2.1 inches for 5 shots. And that was one of the best groups I was able to find in my research for Benchrest accuracy results. A gentleman in the same video achieved a group of 4.476 inches with his heavy gun, which is like 85 pounds, insanely heavy, on like race rails. And in reviewing a lot of different Benchrest channels, the general consensus is that a 10-shot group is generally about twice as big as a 5-shot group. Multiple Benchrest shooters have reported that. And you can see in this example, that's pretty much what happened between this gentleman and this woman. The woman got a 2.1 inch 5-shot group, and the gentleman got a 4.47 inch 10-shot group. There's another Benchrest YouTuber, Winning in the Wind, and he posts his Benchrest results. He's got several 15-shot groups. Generally, the vertical spread is somewhere around 9 to 11 inches. So Winning in the Wind YouTube channel, this Benchrest shooter got a vertical group of 11 inches and 16 inches of horizontal. His second group was 9 inches with 8 inches of horizontal. His third group was 11 inches of vertical with 13 inches of horizontal. And you can see in general, most of the time their horizontal spread is bigger than their vertical spread due to wind. Now when you look at people in the field, there's a couple guys that posted, 2.5 to 3.5 inch groups at 1,000 yards, but there really isn't anybody that really posts anything more than that that's outside of the Benchrest realm. Most of the PRS shooters and the King of 2 Mile shooters can do better than these YouTube guys that just go out and plink still, but they don't generally shoot for groups and they don't report those groups. So there was one PRS shooter that had a pretty nice setup, a Terminus 6GT rifle with an MDT stock, and he was shooting clay ammunition, factory ammunition, and so he shot record groups at 1,000 yards. His first 10-shot group, he did pretty good with his vertical spread, but he didn't really judge the wind and adjust for the wind, so he had a decent amount of horizontal spread. And then he had a 9-shot group that measured 6.24 inches. However, he did call a flyer down low, didn't really know why that happened. Most likely it was an ammunition inconsistency that did that. And then he shot another 5-shot group that was 6.07 inches. And so he did a pretty good job. So honestly, his accuracy that he achieved was very similar to the Benchrest shooters that we just showed you guys, minus the flyer that was down low. So when they're shooting factory ammunition like that, there are a couple things that can cause that kind of a flyer to be outside of the group. One of them is differences in the me play. Now the me play is the tip of the bullet, and if you look at it on different, especially the bow to hollow points, they'll have a different geometry on the tip. And the inconsistent geometry on the tip can cause an erratic flyer and open up your group. So Eric Cortina, in reviewing his channel, he actually trims the me play slightly, and he says that it will reduce his groups from 10 inches at 1,000 yards down to 5 inches just from doing that. There's other things that can cause flyers. One of them is maybe a powder charge inconsistency, so you got a variance in velocity, or more likely you might have a burr inside of the primer hole that's causing inconsistent ignition with your primer. And that would definitely explain that erratic flyer. Now, these Benchrest guys, they do an insane amount of case prep and bullet prep to be able to achieve the insane accuracy that they can. And I find, you know, I used to kind of chase after some of that stuff, and there's kind of a point of diminishing returns. If you're the things that they're doing is, you know, they're turning the necks, they're reaming the flash hole, they're chamfering the necks, they're weighing bullets, they're chopping the me play, and in doing all of those different steps, you end up spending more time on the reloading bench than you do on the range. And so if you get really good high quality factory ammunition, then I think that probably, you know, it's 80% as good, and I would rather spend more time on the range practicing and maybe have an occasional flyer or two than spending all my time behind the reloading bench. So, however, if I was in Benchrest, I would definitely do the insane case prep and bullet prep and hand loading steps that they're going through to be able to squeeze the extreme accuracy out of the system and eliminate all the flyers. Now we're going to analyze my groups to see how they compare to these Benchrest guys. Now, in the past, I shot in quite a few PRS competitions. However, I spend more time in engineering of the firearms nowadays, and so I don't get to shoot as much as I used to. So there's a lot better shooters than what I am, but I'm a pretty good shot, and I have a lot of experience shooting at extreme distances. So what I'm showing you guys is realistic and takes a lot of talent and a lot of skill to be able to achieve. And first I want to start out by looking at the rifle itself. You know, is the rifle accurate enough to achieve extreme levels of accuracy? Well, I've shot this rifle for a long time, and I know that this rifle and our ammunition shoot really exceptionally well. So a couple weeks prior, I did the 1 MOA all day challenge with our SRS-M2 Lapua, and I achieved a 10-shot group that was 1.19 MOA. And of the 10 shots, then the height of the group was 0.62 inches. Now, I had a pretty stiff wind that was changing on me, and I didn't account for the wind at all. I just held dead on, and I just shot the 10 shots, which was a mistake. I should have actually accounted for the wind. If you look at the best 9 shots, then my grouping was 0.685 MOA, and the vertical dispersion of that 9-shot group is 0.39 inches. So that's insanely tight for a 338 Lapua. For those of you that shoot a lot, you know that a larger diameter bullet like a 338 has a disadvantage to the small 6mm bullets and 6.5mm bullets. And that's why in all the competitions, you know, competitors are running those smaller diameter bullets. So this is insane accuracy for a 338. Looking at the best 8 shots of our group, we have a group size of 0.465 MOA. So less than half MOA for 8 shots at 100 yards. And the vertical dispersion is only 0.245 MOA. So 1/4 inch of vertical dispersion. That's pretty awesome. A few years back, then we did 1,500 meter accuracy tests off a bipod with the SRS, and we did 2 different shooters, 10 shots each, and I achieved this group over here, 9 inches with a vertical spread of 15.25 inches, and I had a called flyer, which I called low, and sure enough, when we got over there, then it was low, which opened it up to 28 inches. Now, Russ Wallace, he shot the other 10-shot group, and he didn't have a flyer, so he did better than I did. But he did 16.62 inches. So these are 1,500 meter groups. Military testing, we did these, documented it. So we know that the gun shoots. We know that the ammo shoots. We're going to dissect our group, and we're going to talk about things that impact the dispersion of the group and hopefully help educate everybody to be able to improve their accuracy or diagnose any kind of issues that they're seeing on target. In analyzing the 1100 yard accuracy, we're going to first take a look at the first 5 shots in the string. So our vertical spread of those first 5 shots was 1.62 inches. That's crazy, crazy tight. And so 0.15 MOA at 1100 yards. And our horizontal spread was 12.62 inches, which is 1.15 MOA. You might ask, why is there horizontal spread? When I doped the gun, I had a 3 mile per hour wind reading. So I doped it for 3 miles per hour and I left that same hole the entire string of fire. Then it turns out that the shots that hit over here is the shots that I was using the 3 mile per hour hold. And the shots that hit over here, the wind died off. And you can validate that if you watch the string of fire, because the dust cloud after it goes through the target is different. You'll notice the shots that went to the right, then there's not very much wind blowing the dust to the left. But the shots that hit in the center here, then you can see that the dust cloud was blowing to the left more. So a 3 mile per hour change in wind explains this horizontal dispersion. So had I been able to adjust for wind, I wouldn't have this horizontal dispersion. But quite frankly, a 3 mile per hour change in wind is a pretty subtle change. So we're going to analyze the next 5 shots in the 10-shot string. On average, the group moved up a couple inches, and we have 3 shots of the 5 shots that measure 0.87 inches or 0.08 MOA. So 3 of those 5 shots, very, very tight vertical dispersion. We do have 2 flyers, one that was low and one that was high, and we're going to talk about those flyers here in a bit. First, we're going to talk about what could have caused this kind of vertical. You might say maybe it's just a part of the group dispersion, or perhaps it's mirage. So I got a video showing you the mirage, and you can see we got about 0.1 minutes of angle of mirage, and it's very possible that my hold might have changed a little bit due to the mirage in the second string of fire. Right. So in addressing these 2 flyers, I think those are probably ammunition related, because there really wasn't any reason for it. The rifle and ammunition are obviously accurate enough. We got very good consistency for 8 of the 10 shots. And so what could those 2 flyers be? I don't think I shanked the trigger, because I was trying really hard to have a good trigger pull. I think probably either you had a variance in the velocity of the ammo, or the meat-play of the bullet might have been a little bit different on those 2 bullets. But again, this is typical of factory match ammo. So as we look at the aggregate of the entire group, taking the best 8 shots, so if we exclude the flyers, that were obviously flyers, we have 8 shots that are 6.5 inches of vertical and 14.12 inches of horizontal. And so that's half MOA of vertical with 1.23 MOA of horizontal. Now you throw the 2 flyers in there, and you're sitting about maybe just over 1 MOA of vertical. So it's still pretty good. As we looked at the Benchrest groups that they shot, they were having roughly 9 to 11 inches of vertical when they shot 10 to 15 shot strings. So this is pretty good in comparison with what they were doing. My horizontal is a little bit bigger than theirs, but the vertical is pretty tight, with the exception of those 2 flyers. So when I was aiming at the 1100 yard target, I was aiming at the center of the green circle, and the center of my group was 0.15 mils to the right. which really is about 1.5 miles per hour of windage error in my hold. So I had a 0 to 3 mile per hour wind that was fluctuating, and so the average of that is 1.5 miles per hour of error in my wind. So the vertical placement of the group was 0.16 mils low, and Tresol, when we developed the application, I tested it myself very extensively, and the prediction of that software was able to be within 0.1 mils out to 1,500 yards. So this is 0.16 mils. I didn't have a chronograph, unfortunately. My Garmin was dead. But when I got back, I talked to our production team that loads the ammunition, and they mentioned that this new lot of ammunition was a little bit slower than the last lot just due to variances in the powder's burn rate. And they said it was about 40 feet per second slower, which would definitely explain what that vertical drop was, because my Tresol had my previous velocity in there. So target. The second target is at 1,500 yards. We're not going to do a complete analysis of the 1,500 yard group because I don't want to make the video too long, but in general the group was actually really great. The thing that really screwed that group up was, you still had some wind fluctuations that opened up the horizontal in the group. However, I had one shot that went low, and then when it went low, I held my crosshairs a little bit higher on my final shot, and that final shot ended up hitting higher than the rest of the group. And so I think that had I not adjusted my point of aim, that last shot would have fell right inside of the group, and it would have gave a pretty exceptional vertical spread with a little bit more horizontal spread, just like what we saw at 1,100 yards. Last group, but you take the center 8 shots, well, I guess 7 in this case, and it's about 14.25 inches of vertical. So 7 out of 10 shots, 14.25 inches of vertical. So had I not adjusted my aim up higher, this shot would have fallen within these shots here, which measured about 14.25 inches. And so 1,500 yards, that's well under 1 minute of angle. Not quite as good as the 1,500 yard accuracy that we got before, but it's not that far away from that. So we had, I believe it was like 15 to 16 inches of vertical on those other 2 10-shot groups that we tested at 1,500 meters. So we're out here shooting the 338 Lapua Magnum at 1,100 yards again. The wind is crazy and it's always changing, especially out here right now. We had a wind from 0 miles an hour up to 12 miles an hour, and it was constantly fluctuating the entire string. I mean, there wasn't more than about a second or two where the wind was actually even staying the same speed. And so as we were shooting this group, I was constantly adjusting my wind hold, 0.2 mils, 0.4 mils, 0.8 mils, 1.2 mils, like the entire grouping throughout the whole string. And so it's pretty tough to be able to tighten up that horizontal with that kind of wind fluctuation. And what was crazy was downrange, the wind was doing a lot different stuff than it was at the gun. So Brian was reading his Kestrel wind meter, constantly giving me the wind readings at the gun, but as I would fire my holds, it was really apparent that most of the time the shot downrange was hitting in a different place than it was supposed to based on the wind at the gun. So I transitioned over to using the Mirage and viewing the Mirage and watching those heat waves get blown around by the wind. And that seemed to give me a much better result, which quite frankly is what I typically do when I'm shooting these kinds of distances, is I watch the Mirage and more just use the wind at the gun as kind of a baseline to start from, and then projecting the downrange winds based upon what the wind at the gun is doing. So we were out in the plains over there, and there was no mountains really blocking the wind hitting us, and we had a 230 wind coming at us. But then you got this hill, and you got this mountain, you got this draw, and you got wind racing down through here. And so it really, you have to kind of look at the terrain, and almost like water is flowing over the hills, to be able to estimate what that wind is doing as it's coming across the terrain.
.8, 5.2, 4.5, 3.9, 3.6. That's a hit. 5.4, 5, 4.9. 6.3, 8.4, 8.6, 8.7, 8.5, 8.3, 8.1, 8.3, 8.4. Impact. Impact. Impact.
And the size of the group is about 11 1/4 inches, so about 1 minute of angle of vertical. And if you get rid of this high one, then you got 7 minutes of angle. That's pretty good. And anybody that can do better than that, show us. Don't sit there and say crap in the comments if you can't flip and show us in the video, because it's pretty ridiculous to do that. So you might have got like a 3-shot group that's 2 inches, maybe a 5-shot group if you had no wind changes or whatsoever, but definitely not a 10-shot group, and definitely not in variable wind conditions. A big part of why I did the video was because nobody is showing groups at 1,000 yards and beyond. So I would really like to educate everybody on extreme distance accuracy, because I don't think that anybody's doing it anywhere, and everybody, I think, is just, has preconceived notions of what it's like. Most people, they shoot 1 or 2 shots, sometimes 3 shots, sometimes 5, and they call it good. So I like to shoot 10-shot groups because it really highlights what is the, I guess, the maximum aggregated capability of a system. So that's a part of why I'm doing this series, is to really help kind of establish some baseline standards of what is possible with a very precise field rifle shooting off a bipod in conditions without wind flags or anything like that. Just realistic field conditions, what is really possible. Thanks for watching. I hope that you guys are enjoying the extreme distance analysis and demonstrations that we're doing. We're still going to go out and do some extreme distance accuracy testing with the 375 ShyTac in our HTI rifle in the next week or so. So stay tuned for that. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so that you'll be able to watch our HTI video that comes out next. Thanks for watching.